Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the new Retribution Paladin talent, Holy Flames, which was put into the game recently to replace Vanguard of Justice. So we are here on the beta, and we're just going to be talking about this talent and its choice node. It's with Blade of Vengeance, and what does this talent do? What is this talent for? What does this choice node mean now? Where's Empyrean Legacy? It's over here. And so just kind of go over what these things mean and what it could possibly mean, right? We don't know yet for sure, because this is going to be one that I think really needs to be simulated, except for very obvious and practical uses for Holy Flames. So what Holy Flames does is it does 10% increased Divine Storm damage. It does 3% increased Holy damage. And it also spreads your expurgation, which is this talent. It's the one that puts the dot on from your blade. It spreads it to 4 nearby enemies when you Divine Storm. So it's a way to apply your expurg to everything, just like Blade of Vengeance does, without actually pressing it to spread it. Now, I don't think anyone's min-maxing, or I don't know if there's any real world where like mobs are being brought in late and they're like, oh, I gotta cast my blade to get my expurg up on them. In like an AoE situation, like AoE is a little bit more hectic, and a lot of times min-maxing every global in a hectic AoE situation isn't always necessarily the best thing. You might need to be doing something else at any moment, especially in Mythic Plus, right? You might need to be focused on doing a kick or an interrupt. You probably aren't min-maxing every single global. And so I don't know that was ever the case to begin with. But in theory, you could just apply this whenever you wanted to any mob. And generally, it just happens naturally. Just while you're playing, it's going to happen and have a very high uptime. Now, with Holy Flames, it's a little bit different. And I think this ability needs work. Maybe I'm crazy. I just feel like there's something missing with this. Because this seems like it's intended to be a single target cleave ability. So this is intended to be a raid ability. This is the same thing with Vanguard of Justice, which is what it replaces, so it makes sense, right? So they redesigned Vanguard of Justice, like in their eyes, at least what it's doing, right? It's not doing the same thing at all. This is about Divine Storm, and it's not the same thing as, Vanguard of Justice had Divine Storm in it as well. But it's completely reworked to try to do the same thing, in my opinion, but it's a little bit awkward as well. So what you're going to have here is with the 3% holy damage is interesting, because I'm wondering if that is like similar to taking Empyrean Legacy. So like is Holy Flames just a very good single target talent? Like once you fill out all the talents you need for your single target, is Holy Flames just a solid single target talent at that point? Which again would make sense if it was a single target cleave talent, because you don't want to neuter your single target just because there's some ads you need to cleave at some point. So is that the case? Is this meant only for like a council fight for 4 or 5 targets in a council fight where there's always that many targets? Obviously, that's very good for Judge, Jury, Executioner as well. I do think that these talents, this is something I mentioned as well. This is actually one of the things I exactly mentioned, was to move Empyrean Legacy with Vanguard of Justice, because it seemed like Vanguard of Justice was supposed to go Judge, Jury, Executioner, and I don't think it was evident by where it was on the talent tree. So they actually did do that, even though they changed this to Holy Flames now. I think these are kind of meant to be together, but with this one being where it's at, it's almost like, well, also maybe use this for single target as well, without the AoE. The part where it becomes awkward is the Divine Storm 10% damage part, because it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around that, because in single target cleave, right, if we're using Judge, Jury, Executioner, we're not going to be casting Divine Storm. And if we're using Empyrean Legacy, that's only a Divine Storm once every 20 seconds, which means that your expurgation is not going to have full uptime on the ads anyways. It's going to be less than 50%, 9 out of 20 seconds of expurg, because it's you're not going to be refreshing it. Now maybe the idea is that you do randomly cast one Divine Storm, so you get your proc, and then 10 seconds later you hard cast a Divine Storm that does a little bit more, 10% more damage, and then you go about single target again. So maybe it's about weaving Divine Storm in. That could be an interesting thing. That's definitely something to look into, to test, and things like that. Is it about weaving a Divine Storm in to reapply your buffs on this cleave fight? Is the 10% AoE so good that you want to use it in Mythic Plus? The 10%, especially if you're using Herald. So Herald of the Sun, this increases a lot of the stuff, increases your Divine Storm damage as it is. And if you're playing Herald, I would recommend you taking all the Divine Storm talents. So if you're in Mythic Plus and you just have these super powerful Divine Storms, is this an AoE talent as well? And that's where it becomes a little bit awkward, is because it's like, okay, it's a single target talent, maybe, just from the 3% holy damage. It's kind of a single target talent. It's a cleave talent, clearly, because it's cleaving your Experg onto multiple enemies. But then it's also possibly an AoE talent. And that's where it becomes really, really weird, especially because it's on this choice node with a talent that's only an AoE talent. It's also a cleave talent, I guess. It's not only an AoE talent, but it's a AoE plus cleave talent. But it's not target capped, right? So if you were hitting 20 targets who were going to stay alive for any amount of time, it would definitely probably be better just to use Blade of Vengeance, right? If you're hitting, or what I should say is there is a certain target cap where that's probably going to be the case. Is it 10 targets? Is it 20 targets? Whatever the number may be. So Blade of Vengeance is definitely like the big AoE thing, I would think. But is Blade of Vengeance still better for cleave as well, with having all the uptime on your Experg and all the damage that does? And so it's a weird thing where that's where you're going to have to simulate it out. So what's going to happen is, in my opinion, right now, and these things could be tuned differently. They could adjust this ability to make it a little bit more clear what it's for. It's just not completely clear what it's for. I have my theory that it's for single target cleave, like raid cleave. I have a feeling that's what it's for, but I don't know that that's what it's for. And I don't think it's evident by what it does as to what it's for. So when we can simulate this, right? When we have all the builds, when we have everything possible to simulate out, and that's going to be rough. There's hero talents, there's everything to consider in that, right? But when we can finally do that, we're going to see, like, at what targets is this better? Or is Blade always better? Do they need to buff Holy Flames? But if they buff Holy Flames in its current state, aren't we always just going to take Holy Flames no matter what, because it does like a little bit of everything? And then so Blade of Vengeance becomes worthless if you buff this too much. And so it's an interesting thing to think about. It's an interesting thing to contemplate. I think they just still aren't quite there yet. Just like Vanguard of Justice, it wasn't quite there. There was too much going on. There's 2 talent points in it. There's too much going on to get it to work right. And now you have this thing where, again, it's so unclear to me. Maybe I'm crazy, but I mean, I'm reading some things other people are saying too. And I think other people are kind of having the same feeling as me. At least some are. And it's just like, what is this talent all about? Because it could potentially be really good on big AoE. It could put, or at least similar to Blade, right? And then you would take it for the single target for the bosses on a Mythic Plus, right? Even if it's similar to Blade, then you would just take it anyways, right? And so having that increased Divine Storm damage, I think, is really the issue here. And I don't know exactly how to get around it, because they want it to do something with Cleave. What if then it becomes a very powerful single target talent. So I was going to say, what if it actually increased? Okay, so here we go. This is just off the top of my head. I like to come up with solutions. Don't know if this one's good. But what if instead of spreading your Experg on it or whatever, what this talent does is it causes your final verdict to put a dot on your targets. And it can hit up to the same amount of targets as Judge Jury or something like that. And then it also still does the 3% holy damage or 5% holy damage or something like that. I don't know. Because then you would always take it for single target, but you clearly would not take it for big AoE. And so you'd have big, and that's what I'm trying to do with my solution here. I'm not trying to like ruin the talent. I'm not trying to do anything like that. What I'm trying to do is delineate, okay, this one is big AoE because like if we're pulling 20 mobs, we're pulling 3 packs of Mythic Plus. Blade of Vengeance is a pretty good choice here. Okay, we're doing a raid fight. We're hitting 4 targets. We're hitting 5 targets, whatever. We're pulling Mythic Plus 1 at a time only, and I'm running Templar, and I'm playing Judge Jury in the Mythic Plus. Maybe I can run Holy Flames as well. So maybe synchronizing it a little bit more, because again, with Judge Jury, you don't really want to press your Divine Storm too much when you're playing Judge Jury. It's not that you can never press it, but you don't really want to be pressing Divine Storm too much. You want to be using all your Holy Power on your Final Verdict, which is going to be cleaving everything. And so maybe just trying to make the synergy with it a little bit more obvious, because right now the only obvious thing is the target cap. The target caps being similar, right, between Judge Jury and Holy Flames. That's kind of the only thing that's like making it obvious that it's connecting. So basically, if you are thinking that these things work in tandem, these are a tandem of talents, just like we have a lot of tandems. We have CSAA with Zealot's Fervor. We have, you take certain things with, if you have, with Execution Sentence, you're pretty much always going to take Executioner's Will. There's certain things you're going to take together, right? And so if this is meant to be a tandem, I would just encourage them to make it a little bit more obvious that they're a tandem, and a little bit more obvious is the best word there. And then of course, this is already obvious what it does. So then you'd be like, okay, that's for cleave. Maybe we still take Holy Flames for single target. And then Blade of Vengeance is clearly the AoE choice. If I'm running AoE, full Herald of the Sun, full Divine Storm, full AoE, then I'm going to take Blade of Vengeance. And what blurs that line is that 10% increased damage to your Divine Storm. So again, I don't know exactly what the answers are. I don't have all the solutions, but I do see like this little bit of an issue here with this no choice. But I really like the idea of the talent. I've been talking about this. Like, let's modify the talent to do something that has synergy with something. Basically, that's what I was thinking of for Vanguard of Justice. Let's make it a synergistic talent. And they did in a way, right? It's kind of like it was synergized with Ire, it was synergized with Empyrean Legacy, but like it was the real problem was it was 2 points. It didn't make sense where it was located. There's some other issues with it, and so we've done the correct thing here in making it like its own talent, making it 1 point, but like maybe just a little bit of synergy or a little bit of clarity, because basically the way it is now, I believe it'll either be something that's like always taken or almost never taken, because this guarantees you your uptime of Xpurg on everything. This doesn't. And then so the only thing you might take it for, so if Blade is just better, right? Let's say Blade's better at every amount of targets, 2, 3, 4, everything but 1, right? Let's say as long as you're cleaving, Blade is better. Well, then you're just taking this if the 3% holy damage is more than like a point in a point in Empyrean Legacy, a point in Ire, whatever, when you simulate it. And so that's a weird reason to take it, in my opinion. But yeah, because I don't think that's what it's designed for either. I don't think it's designed to be a pure single target patchwork talent. I got that. Now it's fine if we take it for that as well, but I don't think that's what it's designed for. So that's kind of my thoughts on Holy Flames. Obviously, people can have completely different thoughts, and I'm open to everything. But I've tried it out. I've been using it in my single target build, honestly, because I think it's very comparable. That 3% holy damage is very comparable to some other talents. So, would love to hear what you guys think about it. But we'll call it quits for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.